Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much for the introduction, Brian, and thank you to everybody in attendance. Looks like we've got quite the turnout today, which is good to see. Lots of interest in the webinar series that we've been putting on. So today's topic is migrating to Office 365, and is it time to make the move? So the agenda for today's topic matter is what is Office 365? Is it time to migrate? Pricing and subscriptions, and the infamous myths about Office 365. So Office 365 is the name used by Microsoft to refer to a collection of cloud-based enterprise communication and collaboration tools. So it includes an ever-growing list of applications and services, and the most popular of these are the Exchange Online, which is enterprise-grade email, calendaring, contact, and task management. The Office desktop apps, so those include the locally installed versions of Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and some others. SharePoint Online, which is a centralized location for file and folder sharing, as well as some collaboration and other definite business benefit added features. And as Teams. We use this quite a bit, and that's the newest version of Enterprise, or Skype for Business, as Microsoft was calling it. They've now migrated that completely off to Teams. And Office 365 is a subscription service, which means you pay every month, or so you can subscribe either monthly or annually, but it's a monthly subscription fee for the specific features that you want. And please don't confuse Office 365 with Dynamics 365. Dynamics 365 is a cloud-based business application platform that combines your components of customer relationship management, CRM, and enterprise resource planning like ERP, along with a whole suite of productivity applications and other AI tools, artificial intelligence tools that can be found in the Microsoft Store. One of our divisions, DMS InsightWorks, have quite a few applications on the Microsoft Store that integrate directly with Dynamics 365 Business Central. All right, so is it time to migrate? And here's some things to consider before making that decision. So to determine if Office 365 might be a good fit for your business, ask yourself the following questions. So do we have mobile workers that need to both access and update email and files from anywhere? So that anywhere being from home, from holidays, from a cafe, from business trips, from anywhere, so around the globe. Am I concerned about security and accessibility to my critical business data in the event that the server where my data is stored is suddenly inaccessible? So a server crash or a natural disaster or something to that effect. Do I prefer spending larger capital expenditures upfront for every couple of years with smaller maintenance expenses in between, or would I prefer to pay the smaller amount each month that allows me to scale up or down with respect to the number of users that require the applications? It's more of a CapEx or an OpEx conversation that you want to have. Would our employees benefit from features like advanced calendar sharing, instant messaging, and other advanced features and collaboration tools? And actually, your customers can benefit from that as well, so, and your vendors. And do I want a product that can easily scale with my business as we scale up or down with respect to employees and our corporate data? So some other things to look at is your existing mail server, or will it soon be end of life? So Exchange 2010 will be out of support as of October of 2020. And earlier versions of Exchange are no longer supported, which means that Microsoft will no longer be providing security and reliability updates. Your desktop Office applications are, or will also be soon end of life. So Office 2010 will be out of support as of October 2020 as well. And earlier versions of Office are no longer supported by Microsoft and will also no longer receive service packs or updates. Your business is expanding. You may have added more employees or additional offices, and collaboration and access. So management and collaboration is becoming more difficult. So perhaps you have a greater need to support mobile workers. You don't have the budget for a larger capital expenditure to upgrade, or purchasing new hardware and licensing requires an expensive upfront cost that may not be possible, or you didn't budget for it. And you may have outgrown the capabilities of your current mail system. So you have an increased need for more sophisticated collaboration and management of your email. And here's some other potential features and benefits that you may want to consider prior to making your decision. So moves, Office 365 moves the management of core infrastructure for mail and data management to Microsoft. So they've got the facilities to do all that. And so if a serious problem does occur, it's Microsoft's responsibility to resolve that issue. So given that 4 out of 5 of the Fortune 100 companies on the planet use Office 365, it's in Microsoft's best interest to resolve any issues as quickly as possible, as they don't like bad publicity. If something does go bad and they don't fix it within a timely manner. You can leverage Microsoft's expertise and resources to achieve industry-leading uptime with an average uptime in 2018 of 99.98%. You can pay for only what you use, with the ability to quickly scale up or down as your business needs change. You can centralize all of your data to both make it easier for your employees to find the information they need, but also to help minimize data leaks from data scattered across individual hard drives and USB keys. Not only data leaks, but also potential for theft, data breach, the option or the opportunity of intellectual property being stolen or walking away. There's all kinds of security issues or potential issues that this can address as well. You can empower your employees to work from anywhere with full access to all of the data they need to perform their daily tasks and jobs, which is very empowering for them. You have improved security as Office 365 supports multi-factor authentication, which requires both your password and a mobile phone to access your applications as well as your data. And company data, as well as a feature called conditional access, where access can be restricted to a particular geography or region, or a host of other potential restrictions depending on your requirements. So again, with security becoming more and more prevalent and required for your business to stay protected, stuff like that can be very beneficial. So Office 365 pricing and subscriptions. So Office 365 is a subscription-based service, which means that you can pay either monthly or annually amount subscription fee for accessing the services you subscribe to. You can mix and match subscriptions on a per-user basis to ensure that you only pay for what you use. The most popular subscriptions is called Office 365 Business Premium, and it includes some items like the latest versions of the familiar desktop Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, and some others. One license that covers 5 devices that can be phones, tablets, PCs, laptops, even Mac. People that use Mac can get the Mac version of Office installed locally to them. Now, I just want to point out that this licensing schema should not be mistaken for that you can buy one license and 5 users can use, 5 different users can use the application. It's very much a per named user, but that one user can have it installed up to 5 devices. You also get enterprise grade email calendaring contacts with 50 gigabytes of storage per user. As well as SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business with 1 terabyte of storage per user as well. This is just one of the subscriptions that we primarily or mostly use or implement for users. There's many others that we have, but this is one of the standard ones. Now here's a cross-section of 4 of the plans that Microsoft offers. There's many, many, many plans, and it can get somewhat labor-intensive and a little bit daunting if you're trying to choose the right application or right plan for your business. And if that is the case, by all means, please reach out to us, hopefully, or one of your other IT service providers, if they're an Office 365 certified, Microsoft certified company. They can definitely assist you in selecting the right features and the right plan. So some of the more common Office 365 plans that we assist customers in migrating to are noted above. To give you an example of the features set for the first 2, they would include, for example, Exchange Online Plan 1 includes 50 gigs of mailbox storage, and the user can send emails with a size up to 150 megabytes. Users can connect supported versions of Outlook to Exchange Online, so they can use the rich client application they already know, but you have to already own the Outlook license prior to doing that. Again, this is just for the Exchange Online Plan 1. You can have the web client access. Outlook on the web provides a premium browser-based experience that matches the look and feel of a full Outlook client. And every mailbox is protected with Premier Anti-Malware and Anti-Spam protection via the Exchange Online Protection Plan, which is included with it. So a contrast is the Office 365 Business Premium Plan. So the first one is primarily just strictly for Outlook or for your email, your business email. You can connect it to Outlook, or you can have the web version of Outlook called OWA, Outlook Web Access. But in contrast, the Office 365 Business Premium Plan would include all the features and functions and benefits of Exchange Online Plan 1 Plus. You receive the same, email hosting with 50 gig mailboxes and a custom domain name. So, for example, at tmsitech.com. You get desktop versions of Office applications like Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint Plus, Access, and Publisher for PCs only. You get OneNote. You get also the web versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. You get the licensing for 5 devices, as we mentioned before. You get 1 terabyte of storage on OneDrive. You also have access to Teams, which is a collaboration tool for instant messaging and other file sharing. You get a host of unlimited online meetings and video conferencing for up to 250 people. And you also get a maximum number of 300 users. So for example, if you have a company that has above 300 users, you're going to need to migrate to a different plan. And you also get 24/7 phone and web support with this. So again, selecting the correct plan for your business can be tricky and at times quite daunting and confusing. For example, if you have a remote desktop session host or an RDSH environment, you cannot use any of the plans that are here listed. You have to use the Office 365 Pro Plus with shared computer activation enabled. Otherwise, your Office licensing won't activate, and you have to terminate the subscription and start from scratch. All right, so cost of subscriptions. So the monthly subscriptions are paid for each service you use. Each employee will require a separate subscription license for each service they use. Professional services may be required to analyze your current environment and complete the migration. Cutover and user training, unless you have dedicated internal staff that can do that or are very familiar with the product, is usually one of the key features that you want to implement as well. And once the migration is complete and you no longer need to purchase or manage servers or disk for your email, server or possibly even your file server, so there's a cost benefit there. And if you have heavily customized applications that interact directly with Microsoft Exchange, say for example your ERP or some other applications, some additional work may be required to customize that. But most vendors are now writing APIs to plug directly into Microsoft Exchange and or Office 365 environments. So as they're being released, all these companies are ensuring that they are compatible with it, ensure that they stay ahead of the curve and are compatible. So is it time to migrate? And here's some high-level steps to the migration process. So you perform an inventory of your current environment, including but not limited to your accounts, user accounts, mailboxes, the software that is running in your environment, as well as your network configuration. We'll get to some of that in a little bit more detail in a second. You then create your Office 365 tenant. So you choose the name carefully, as it cannot be changed later, and then you purchase the required licenses. After that, you determine your user authentication process. So do you want dual factor authentication? Do you want the geo locking down of the geographic regions that can and cannot be accessed, or if employees are in those regions, can or cannot be accessed to the environment? Then you deploy the latest Office desktop applications to your users and their environment. Then you migrate your data into the Office 365 platform. And then you perform the cutover from legacy systems to the Office 365 platform. And then you provide user training with the new capabilities, features, and functions of the environment. I can't stress enough how much or how often user training is overlooked, and it's actually a very key element of the migration path. Not training your users properly or at all. We've seen it, and it usually doesn't have a positive outcome. There can be lost work, loss of functionality for the users, or they just don't know how to get to that functionality. And so when they're unfamiliar with it, productivity goes down as well. So something to consider. So here's some migration considerations as well. So the labor cost to perform the migration is the time required that can vary quite a bit depending on the complexity of the migration. But as a general rule, several days will be required to perform the initial discovery and to create the detailed and feasible migration plan. Updating all of your end user machines to prepare for the Office 365 migration. And it will also depend on how many machines there are and how many changes are required, but a good ballpark is roughly approximately 3 hours per machine. And not all of them will take this long, but some machines will always require some extra attention. Another thing to consider and pay attention to is the version of Windows your clients are running. As an example, and we run into this all the time, there is some businesses that still use legacy operating systems like Windows XP or Vista, and these are not supported by Office 365. So if you subscribe to Office 365 and you're running Windows XP or Vista and you try and download and install the applications, they simply will not install and they will not activate. So the same holds true for migrating your Exchange email. If you have an on-site or a differently hosted Exchange environment currently outside of the Office 365 environment, and it's not, I think it's 2012 and later, then there's several steps and iterations that have to happen prior to being able to migrate all of the email data off of that Exchange server into the cloud. And as an aside, while we're talking about operating systems and supported applications, I want to just make everybody aware, if they are not already, that Windows 7 is coming end of life effective January 1st, 2020. And this means that Microsoft is no longer releasing security updates or hot fixes for any security exploits. So if you haven't developed an upgrade plan for Windows 10 yet, you want to get on that very soon. The actual data transfer takes typically a few days, depending on the amount of data and the speed of the internet connection. Speed of internet connection from the site currently hosting your mail to migrating it off of that site is a big consideration to have when you're trying to plan for migrating your environment off of locally hosted or on-premise, they call it on-prem, to the Office 365, i.e. Hosted Exchange environment with Microsoft. If you have an upload speed of 1 megabyte per second, you're going to be waiting a long time. If you have 30 users with huge inboxes or huge PST files or mail folders. And then finally allocate another day or so for user training and migration and cleanup. Depending on the number of employees and the number of new Office 365 features you plan to introduce, please don't underestimate the importance of user training. As I mentioned before, it's often overlooked, and companies do end up paying additional due to user errors, loss of productivity, and so on. So some words of knowledge from those who've been there. So yes, we've been there, we've done that. We've done quite a few migrations, and throughout those migrations, we always do run into something that may not have been expected or we've not run into before, and we have to learn from those experiences. And here's some items that you can benefit from those experiences. So here's some examples of the things we've run into. Your data is hosted in someone else's data center. There are a number of security safeguards in place to protect your data, but if you're adamant that you must exclusively control all of your data, then the Office 365 environment may not be exactly what you're looking for. Office 365, like any other cloud service, is dependent on the quality and speed of and availability of your internet, as I mentioned just previously. If it's not fast enough for the number of users you have, or is otherwise unreliable, the cloud solution like Office 365 may not be for you at this time. Office 365 as a modern cloud solution expects to run a modern supported operating system. I just went through that, but if your client computer is not running Windows 10, you may have compatibility issues, which will only become more pronounced over time. So to use a cloud-based solution means it's critical to keep your client-side computer operating systems up to date. And Office 365, specifically OneDrive and SharePoint Online, can provide an excellent solution for file storage and even replace your local file server. The one thing that you have to pay attention to with this is if you do want to use the SharePoint and OneDrive as those fundamental file storage and collaboration tools, it requires a fundamental shift in how you think about file and folder storage. The solution will also typically be slower than an on-premise file server. Again, you're trying to reach everything through the cloud. So if your current mail environment is not built on Microsoft Exchange with some other product, it could be hosted through Google or it could be hosted somewhere else through other means, the migration process introduces more unexpected issues and can take more time to find resolutions for. So if it's not a well-supported mail application, you may be looking for additional time to, or you will be looking for additional time to try and migrate it off. The preparation and discovery for migration will always take longer than the actual migration itself. So here's where the devil's in the details, as we say. You want to ensure that you try to isolate as many unknowns and gotchas, potential gotchas as possible ahead of time and find a solution prior to trying to migrate off and then finding all these errors and potential gotchas along the way. Some customers that already have Office 365 tenants created from a previous project or something else, the customer needs to decide if they want to use that tenant name for their new environment or create a new one. Because once it is in place, it cannot be changed later. I can't stress enough how important it is to have and to provide a clear communication and channel, as well as set expectations for both employees and management about what to expect during each phase of the migration. It's also important to explain that some smaller issues will invariably occur. So the Outlook autocomplete cache. So this is where when you start to type a name out the field, it auto-populates based on what you've done and who you've contacted before. This may not migrate with some environments, but will recreate itself over time. It's really just needs to get used to which contact you're trying to send to. For some users, that's a frustration. It may not migrate across, and there's no easy or means at all actually to migrate it across to the Office 365 platform if it isn't already there. We run into this all the time. Employees that have PST files, so local copies of their email folders scattered all over different computers or network shares or all over the place, and trying to find those and isolate them and to migrate those across can be very time consuming if it isn't identified early on. And in some migration scenarios, shared calendaring permissions and personal mapped external calendars do not get migrated automatically, and they must be recreated manually. Likewise, Outlook is also used to access some personal accounts. Those may not have been recreated when they do migrate across. And sometimes users don't remember their passwords to these personal accounts, which makes it, as you can well imagine, very difficult for whoever is migrating them across to figure out or try and identify what their password is. Okay, so there's lots of talk about Office 365 and the cloud and all kinds of other things. And you hear all these myths all the time. So the first one, or one of the first ones we hear is, yep, I'm on Office 365 and it backs up all my data, so I don't have to worry about it. So the reality is that Microsoft takes data integrity seriously and has a number of safeguards in place to protect the data. They do not, however, provide backups of the data. If Office 365 suffers a serious issue, your data may not be recoverable. This is why it's necessary to still perform your own independent backups of your Office 365 data. I think I gave you a little bit of a segue into that when we started this webinar, that we'll be covering this topic in the next webinar. So please stay tuned for that. Myth, if I use Office 365, I have to use web-based versions of the core Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and I hear they're terrible. So it is true that some of the subscriptions of Office 365 only have the web versions of Office applications. And it's true that those versions only offer a subset of the functionality and features of the full products. These are getting better all the time, but for the time being, there are other subscription plans that do include the full versions that you install on your desktop, tablet, mobile device, wherever, just as you would today. Confusingly, however, Microsoft didn't do themselves any favors. They still call it Office 365, regardless if it's the web-only version or if it's the web and installable, locally installable version. So they make it a little confusing at times. Yes, so the next myth is if I move all my data off of Office 365, I'll be locked in and can never leave. This is definitely not true. Microsoft offers tools that allow you to migrate your data to another platform or even back on a premise. So if you went from premise to the cloud and said, no, this is not for us, you want to move back to on-premise, there's Microsoft has provided many tools to allow you to do that as seamlessly as possible. And it would take as much work as it did to migrate into the Office 365, but Microsoft does not place any artificial barriers to prevent you from doing migrating back off. So here's a good one. If I miss paying my bill, all my data will be deleted. That's not true. Office 365 is a subscription service. So if you don't pay the subscription, you don't get the service. However, Microsoft will wait another 3 months after the last payment and include plenty of notifications before deleting the data. So if you do miss a payment, your data will be fine for up to 3 months. After that point, yes, they will take that action. But do have a 90-day grace period. Microsoft will do everything for you so you don't have to do anything. This is primarily speaking to the migration to or from. While it's true that the core infrastructure, you still have to perform all the company-specific administration, such as user management and permissions, as well as the migration off of the data off of their local PCs or laptops or whatever devices onto the Office 365 platform. Another myth, if I move to Office 365, I have to move everything I have. Office 365 is fully supported the concept of hybrid cloud, which means that you can move as much or as little as you want, data as you want, and in the infrastructure as you like, and use whatever platform works best for each individual workload. So, and then Office 365 goes down all the time. It's another one we hear often. And here's a screenshot of the last 3 years with their SLA, which is a service level agreement that they have in place. And this is where it has been in the last 3 years. So you can see that it's been fairly reliable. And that is the end of our webinar today. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and we will be sending out a copy of this. And if you do have any questions or require some additional information, by all means, please send us an email or send me an email or give us a call, and we'll be happy to address those. And,